Hi guys, welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today we are continuing our analysis of Beyond Two Souls, and the chapter we're kicking off with today is none other than Homeless. Now, Jack, when you watched my stream, I was very vocal at the top when this chapter came on. I was very giddy and excited because I have been very vocal that this is my favourite chapter in the game. We often sort of do our favourite chapters like on this channel, whether it's Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain. This, hands down, it's my favourite one, and I know you've still got more to see yet, but would you agree with my sentiment? How did you feel about this chapter overall, lad?
Yeah, I mean, at the top, I was thinking, yeah, bold claim. And I was thinking to myself, I'm very intrigued to see what sort of chapter this is going to be, because remembering from, like, obviously Heavy Rain, like, it was the Lizard, your favourite chapter, and I think from Detroit Become Human, I want to say it was From the Grave, like the one with Marcus, like, coming out of, like, all the sort of wasted, androids and what have you. I was like, okay, I wonder what sort of, like, thing it's going to be. But I've got to say, it's actually my favourite chapter as well. And just as a little thing before we get going, this game is going strength to strength. At this point, I'm not going to say that it's as good as Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human, but this is a solid game, and it is getting, the more I watch, the more I'm starting to connect the dots with where the chapters are. And I think this chapter goes a long way, actually, to really just elevating that game to the next level for me. So yeah, really good overall, mate.
No, massively so, and we'll get into the nitty gritty as well, and you'll understand why we love this chapter so much. But the whole premise is that obviously this is post her running away from the SWATs and stuff, and she's clearly on the run still. She finds herself in what is most likely Seattle. That's what the trivia says, and you can go up to the phone. She gives Nathan a call to say she's given up, and this is where her mental health is rock bottom. There's some really dark themes in this chapter where at one point you can kind of grab that knife out the tire, choose to self-harm. You can even go off to the ledge and try and jump off, but Aiden always tries and stops you. So Jodie is in a really poor mental health state. She's tired, she's hungry, she's exhausted from I imagine mentally and physically. And then she collapses, and then this soul, Stan, who is the same face as Perkins from Detroit Become Human, takes you under his wing, patches you up medically, and then you're suddenly a part of this group full of homeless people. And we have some really fascinating characters, lad. Did any of them, would you say any of them were your favourites at all?
Absolutely. I'd say out of all of them, probably Jimmy's the one that I least engaged with. Really liked Stan, I liked Walter, and I liked all of them. But I liked Tuesday as well, obviously being pregnant. And one thing I would say on this cast of characters, because one thing that stood out to me when I was watching this back was it really did give me Jericho vibes. I know, in this series, I'm calling out Detroit Become Human a lot, but I'm just seeing so many parallels with just this sort of disenfranchised section of society. They're sort of outcasts. It felt very similar as those beats. And if I was comparing this group of characters to, say, your Norths, your Simons, and so on, I think this group are stronger. I don't know if that's a hot take, but for me, I think that this group is stronger. I thought the thing with Stan, with his dead wife, how you can look into the picture and get a glimpse of what's going on, and the little story he tells you about the leukemia when you almost become possessed and you're almost acting as her, was it Nancy, was it? I think it was Nancy, his dead wife. You then hear that bit around the campfire with Walter, I think his name is, how he's an ex-teacher. Obviously Tuesday, who's pregnant, and you genuinely feel within this chapter, it's really emotional, and it just works so well. The writing, the voice acting, the mocap, and I really want to drum this home because it really was strong for me. And I feel like I've got to sort of drum it home because where I've sort of talked about in other games sort of recently where for me it hasn't quite landed to one of those three things, and it doesn't quite, hit home for me. In this, it really does, and in that, jumping right to the end, where like the house is burning down and whatever, and you've got to save all of them, and you've got to save Tuesday and the baby. I was thinking to myself, oh my god, is there jeopardy here? I know that this is a linear game, but maybe these characters can be lost, and I was hoping that you could save all of them. So that was a long way of putting, mate, that I really did like the characters in this chapter.
And it's good because, like, some chapters give you like 5 minutes, you're in and out, you're just like maybe at the lab and you chat to Dawkins and it's done and dusted. But this one, it gives you maybe like over an hour of gameplay. And these characters, like, we've just met him, but in a short space of time, like you say, they really managed to like invoke that emotion. And I think one of the strongest factors why I label it as my favourite chapter, I've mentioned it on this channel before, but it's very similar to one of my favourite books, Stone Cold by Robert Swindle. But also, I just think there's this pure wholesomeness of like, this is like the first group who almost like don't know anything about Jodie and her power. They've just seen a girl in need and they've like adopted her because she's human, right? Like everywhere Jodie's been, it's like someone's wanted to use her in some shape or form because of her power and the benefit to get something out of her. This is just a group of people who've seen a girl collapse on the street and they've brought her in. So like the reasonings are just wholesome and pure, and like they have no idea of like how their lives are about to change with Jodie, and it's just really cool that you get to do all this stuff. So yeah, no, I echo completely what you say. I think it's just such a brilliant chapter that manages to like bring that emotion out. And it's really cool as well because like it doesn't just skirt over a lot of the subjects. Like the first sort of mission we end up kind of doing is you have to kind of take a walk in their shoes, and then you find out what it's like to be homeless, and you've got to go out and acquire money somehow so you can feed yourself for that very day. And it's cool as well gameplay wise. This chapter has everything from good writing, good characters, but also we get some combat in there. But in this sense, you've got to go out and get money, and there's just multiple ways you can go and do that. You can go to like the cash machine and kind of like use Aiden to like withdraw cash for you. You can beg for money and just do it the bog standard way. At one point, you can't get money this way. That man who offers you something, for some money, I never went through with it, but apparently if you try, Aiden just straight up rejects it and then stops you from trying to do it. I myself always like to go the busking way because it's just like, you get to hear a really cool song, Lost Cause by Beck, and it's just like the nicest way to do it. And the cool thing about it as well is that when you get the money afterwards, or don't, you actually, you can fail this and not get any money, and Stan will be like a little disappointed, like, but well, it's like, we'll find it some other way. But if you do it the busking way, he's really happy with you and he's like, oh yeah, you're like our little miracle kind of thing. So I just wanted to gauge your thoughts on this chapter. And not only that, but I did discover an Easter egg, which I showed on the stream as well, to do with Heavy Rain. And I wondered if you spotted that as well, mate.
I did. I wrote it down. The Heavy Rain one, the newspaper, right? The old army killer love story. Yeah. Again, yeah, I love all that sort of thing because, it's, again, it sort of shows like a continuity, I suppose. It's probably an Easter egg. Maybe it suggests it's the same universe, but I think really it's just a little wink to Quantic Dream fans, isn't it? To say, look, this is something for the fans from playing Heavy Rain. But yeah, no, you are absolutely right. It does have a bit of everything, this chapter. A bit of heart. There's some action. I'm hoping there's some jeopardy, and that is a question I'm going to put to you, mate. Like, can some of these characters die in towards the ending? And obviously it involves a little bit of gameplay with Aiden, isn't there? Because you get to, at one point, you've got to get into the supermarket, haven't you? And you've got to, it's sort of a puzzle, isn't it? But you've got to go in, do the little orb thing, but you've also got to like turn the cameras off so that you can go in there and do stuff in the first place. So yeah, I honestly, overall, I was impressed.
Yeah, and they really find a way to kind of like get that emotion, not just because the characters obviously like they've lost their lives, someone was a teacher, they've lost their friends, you have someone who's struggling with an addiction, you have someone who is pregnant and had an abusive partner, and they're worried that their baby, who hasn't kicked in a month, might not even be alive. And then you've got Stan who's grieving. So they hit all these different themes, but on top of that, we get this nasty group of like thugs and kids that go to beat Stan up just because, in Stan's words, they're looking for a one-way fight. And it's really cool as well that there's another branch where you can just choose not to fight and just let Stan get beat up, and then you can kind of carry him home, kind of thing. And Stan doesn't hold it against you. He's just like, yeah, like, there was too many of them. But it is cool that like these thugs have no idea that Jodie's a little CIA badass with some fighting experience. And it is cool just to save Stan again. And Stan's like, who is this girl that we've just saved? Like, she's got us money. She can fight. Like, she's incredible. But it's just really cool as well because it just, again, varies the gameplay up, and then we get some combat in there. So I just wanted your take on that scene as well, and if that made you feel for this group of characters even more so.
I think so, because it sort of comes off what you were saying earlier on, mate, is like, it's the first opportunity where she spends time with people that sort of just take her at face value. She's not seen as like this lab rat that, is sort of serving a purpose for the CIA, or, obviously I don't know at this point what is truly going on there, but, Dawkins and Cole having to monitor her. She's not even in her own home. She doesn't have her own parents around her. So, you have these people that she encounters that sort of see her for who she is. And then they got almost sort of get the wonder as well of like, oh my God, like she can fight. How is she doing all this stuff, like manipulating things in the world to helping us? And you can see like within the hour how she ingratiates herself within the group and how they become like this little tight knit, which again, I think I've got to say is to the strength of the performances and of the writing, which I'm consistently seeing throughout all of the Quantic Dream games, and is why I hold them so highly compared to other games where it just doesn't, something is missing for me. So yeah, overall, really, really strong. I don't think I could really praise it any more than I could, lad.
No, but I think with Quantic Dream, that's the thing with them, right? Is that they're not rushed by publishers. They clearly really care about the art. Like, they'll spend like over a decade making the game, so it says they want it. And that's not to criticize your Telltales, your Supermassive games, or you don't nozzle your Deck Nines, but Quantic Dream just have this really great way of, a game won't come very often, but the moment one drops, you can guarantee you're in for a really good time. But yeah, so like when you come back, you can like, depending on whether you busk, you steal money, you beg for money, you might have varying different levels of cash, but because I bust, I got the max amount, so I got us a hot meal, I even got us some chocolate, which was cool. My one sole nitpick with this chapter is that I'm the kind of person, I want to pick all the dialogue options, but it very much rushes you. It might present you with 4 things and 2 of them. But this is the section where you can do some miracle work. Jimmy's struggling with the cold because of his addiction, and you could actually choose to heal him. I never got to do that because I chose to kind of like help Tuesday ensure her that her baby is alive, because you can feel. And also, I think probably maybe the strongest section of the chapter for me, and this, as you mentioned from the top a little bit, is where as Stan you got to kind of channel the ghost of Nancy and speak to him, because Stan is just clearly this good soul who is just like, oh yeah, get money, just don't kill anyone for it. He clearly has really good morals, and then he's really struggling with his grief, and you kind of got to give him a little bit of closure when Nancy speaks through him. And yeah, that really struck a chord with me. So like, I think my favourite chapter, but this was probably my favourite moment within that chapter as well.
One other thing I wanted to say, mate, is that I know that obviously on the eyes, it's not the most beautiful place where they are. They're under a bridge, then it sort of goes into a fairly ordinary street. But for some reason, I see a beauty in that. And like, again, like the little details, even when you're engaging in dialogue with characters, you can hear like the cars going overhead. You can hear like the sort of the embers of like the clicking of the flames from like, the fires that they've got in the bins. And there's one particular shot, I think it's at night time, when Tuesday's going into labour, and you and Stan have to run off to, go and find suitable accommodation and sort of bits and pieces and supplies and stuff. You're going down that street at night and it looks really foggy and the lights are on and you've got the snow, and it was just, it looked ominous, but it looked a really, really beautiful location as well. And it's like you saying, it's like an art form in itself. Like it was just, I was thinking just like, oh, it just looks superb. Like the little details and just what you're presented with as you sort of traverse the world, you know?
Yeah, the location's a really good point, and I think while Heavy Rain's kind of a very dark tone game set in the rain, a lot of it's kind of like, you know, at night and kind of like a bit moody. This chapter is very reminiscent of the other game that you'll yet to see, Fahrenheit, because that's a game that's heavily set in the snow. It's just the snowy game, you know, where like the whole premise of the game is like, while Heavy Rain, the rain gets like higher. Fahrenheit, like the weather's getting colder and the snow gets like thicker, kind of thing. So like this was very much like it looked like Fahrenheit, and a lot of people share that sentiment. But we wake up in the morning, and yeah, obviously Tuesday goes into labour, and you all go on those missions. And as you mentioned, yeah, you've got to get the food from the supermarket. You got to do that puzzle element there, and then it goes to like the thing where you go through the abandoned building, and you have to like deliver the child. And then luckily it's a premature, but it's a successful birth, and then you get this baby Zoe. But again, these homeless guys cannot catch a break, because instantly this building is alight, and I will put you out your misery, and I will, you know, can actually die in this scene. So I always used to succeed this chapter. I mean, I say I always succeeded. I played it once before on controller back in the PS4 days, and I saved everyone, got Jodie out the building fine. I was fortunate that I was able to save everyone in the building, because Jimmy can actually die at this point, because you have to like possess him to get him to jump over, because he's scared of heights. And Walter can also die. Tuesday and the baby, because I don't think Quantic Dream would have like killed them off. Like I think that would have been a bit too brutal. And Stan have to make it, because I think, you know, like the game will take place in a hospital later, and they do need some of these cutscenes for it to happen. But Jimmy and Walter can die at this scene. I was fortunate enough that I was able to save them, but I absolutely messed up the QTs at the end when it was just myself alone in the building and I didn't get out. So the way my game ended was that Stan had to come back in, because Stan's just such a G, man. He's just such a legend. He carried me out, but Jodie fell into a coma, and then for me it skipped into like the hospital section. But I will let you know that you can actually get Jodie out fully alive, and if you do that, you'll notice that like those teen thugs from earlier are there with like their lighters, whatever, and now reveal, set, you know, the fire to the building, and then they'll kind of like fight you, and then like Jodie will get like hit in the back of the head, and that will make her go into a coma in the same sense that, you know, so it gets you to the hospital regardless. It's just that with me, it was that Stan was able to help me, and I didn't get that extra scene where it revealed what caused the fire, because you're probably sat there wondering, oh, I wonder what caused that fire. It was those teens from earlier. So yeah, I'm just going to throw the mic to you a little bit. What do you think of the fact that you can have deaths at this scene, and the fact that you can kind of have two sort of variations to get you to the next scene in the hospital?
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to obviously that you kept them alive, and I'm glad that there was some risk of jeopardy, because even if this is the thing with like Quantic Dream games or even choice-based games in general, I do like to have my multiple endings, but if there is linearity in a chapter, what I do want to see is that there are multiple ways of getting to that end point, whether it's loss of life, whether it's completely different routes that you take. So obviously from a branching perspective, that's good to hear. Also good to hear that you kept them alive, but also I'm curious as to, now that you've kept them alive, whether these characters are going to come back in some way later on in the game, which I hope they do. If they're not, then I do think that they were good characters just for this chapter alone. As for the boys, yeah, like, you know, I feel like of all the people that had to do it, it was sort of had to be them. I was going to ask you, if you lose the fight to them, would they still set fire to the house? But I imagine that would be a resounding yes, right?
Yeah, they'll set the fire regardless. Like, if you, like with the fight scene earlier, you can choose not to intervene. I obviously did, and Stan was really happy. But like, if you fail the fight, Stan says, oh, there was too many of them, and if you don't do anything, Stan's like, no, don't worry. So Stan's just always positive. There's like no way to piss him off. He's just so wholesome with you. So yeah, like you mentioned, it is really cool that we get that jeopardy there. And in a way, it was almost, in a dark way, it was almost good to fail it to see what happens, because it made me respect Stan more, because it's like Stan actually went back in the fire to get you, and I'm just like, yeah, he might be one of my favourite NPC characters. We rarely see him, but he's just so kind of like wholesome. But then we get through to this like kind of scene afterwards where you're in your coma and you see like kind of like a few future visions actually through like these TV screens before Aiden drags you out. And then you get a 3-month later scene where you like can look at objects around the hospital, and you know it triggers memories. You'll learn that Tuesday, like, her name's actually Eliza and she's going by that now. Jimmy's now like clean, which is amazing for him, and Stan's like found a job and he's now renting an apartment. And you learn as well that the thugs that beat you up and set that house on fire, you know, they were arrested, so that's good to hear. The criticism of the chapter comes at the end, because I'm not a fan of the hospital section where it's 3 months later and somehow the CIA have only like 3 months later learned that you were there, and the timing just seems a little off and convenient, that the moment you wake up is the moment they wake up at the reception. And not only that, but to escape you jump down a really massive floor of like, you know, down the hospital. And I know that Aiden can like cushion the landing, so that probably explains that one. But yeah, just sort of I don't know, almost like a slightly poor way to end what is an amazing chapter, but it still doesn't take anything away from how much I love this homeless chapter, lad.
Yeah, so what, Aiden can... How does that work then? How does Aiden cushion the landing? Because I know, doesn't the nurse come in or the doctor come in and say, oh, it's the 5th floor or something like that? I was thinking, yeah, how does...
I just imagine so, because Jodie has jumped from high things before, and then like you do see that like force field sometimes, and I don't know if it's come yet or if it's later chapters, but she jumps from a really high sort of thing from like the hospital, and that's something we're usually not encouraged to do, especially in heavy rain. I'm looking at Madison Page, which, by the way, side note, Quantic Dream do love their fires, whether it's the party thing, whether it's heavy rain, there's always burning buildings and stuff. So yeah, like but yeah, like I say, it was just a bit sort of like a far away of just like, oh yeah, let's just end the chapter by having Jodie escape via the window, and the CIA are going to conveniently 3 months later, the moment Jodie wakes up, then rock up. Just seemed a little convoluted to me, but still though, it's a nitpick. Very well. Well, we'll move on to First Night. So yeah, that is our praise for that chapter. Let us know in the comments, guys, if this was one of your favourite chapters as well as ours. So we get a bit of a nothing chapter, really, mate. This is called First Night. It's where the parents basically give you up, send you to Dawkins and Cole, and they just sort of say their goodbyes, and then you'll have a bit of like a, you know, like a night routine thing that happens. This is sort of the final time we'll really meet the parents, lad. And it's just more of the same, really. The mum being an absolute sweetheart, hugging you, saying she'll miss you, while Philip's really distant. And again, I think he's probably concerned about the parking meter running out, and he's just like, oh yeah, we've got to go. And it's just, again, Philip's like one of the worst dads in gaming history. It's like, they've got to just be proper like, oh yeah, we're saying goodbye. This girl's being dropped off at like a science lab, but I'm concerned and I like want to leave. He's like trying to rush the goodbye. So I've got nothing good to say about Philip. So much so to the point I tried to choke him as he left, mate. But yeah, like, I just wanted your take on sort of like the parents again.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've almost summed it up there. Philip's an arsewipe. The mum's clearly reluctant to let Jodie go. Obviously, it was from the last episode that we was talking about how Jodie's adopted. He thinks that she's a problem child, so clearly in the background, he's got his way. He's talked Susan round. And yeah, I'm sort of curious whether, you know, come the end of this, you can almost look at Jodie's character a little bit more and sort of say, oh, you know, whether there's sort of things that have definitely impacted her from the case of her parents, like whether they do sort of have some sort of like nod in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say, mate. The dad's not a very good person, and yeah, she's been sort of like the lamb to the slaughter, really, isn't she, Jodie?
Yeah, well, we're as sad as it is to see the mum, Susan, I believe her name is, go, it's, you know, I'm more than happy to see Philip leave this game. It just sucks that he ends alive, basically. But yeah, we get this whole scene with like the shadow puppets from Aiden where we have to go to bed, and then we have to protect Jodie from monsters and stuff. And then it ends in Dawkins sort of swearing to protect Jodie, and Dawkins just get a deeper understanding of what this kind of girl is and what she's going through. One thing I kind of wanted to maybe, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this since you've not completed the game yet, but maybe someone in the comments could kind of fill me in. The thing I'm a little confused on is that we've seen that Jodie has had these night terrors where I assume it's those evil entities we sort of met at the condenser that are the ones that are attacking her in the night. I'm just a little confused because this chapter obviously takes place pre-condenser where a rift hasn't been opened yet. So I'm almost wondering like what these night entities are, what these monsters are. So I'm just a little confused in that aspect. So I'm hoping someone in the comments could maybe just kind of let me know what exactly they are. Not sure if you know yourself, mate.
Nah, I wouldn't. The only thing I could almost hazard a guess is that there's another rift somewhere and they somehow got in. But other than that, I don't really know, mate.
No, so maybe a plot hole, maybe not, maybe it is explained, but I would kind of like the clarification on that one. But we are going to go into like the final chapter that we're going to cover in this analysis video today, and it is called Like Other Girls. Now, before I proceed, if you at home, if the subjects and the themes of like, you know, sexual abuse, it's kind of like a harrowing subject for you, I do maybe recommend to dip out at this point. This is a very dark chapter that we are going to have, Jack, and I almost will fill you on the details of what can happen because I dipped on stream because I didn't want to reveal it. But the whole chapter starts really strong, and this is something I mentioned to you, a little bit of branching is that you get two sort of teenage versions of Jodie because you are adolescent Jodie at this point. I imagine she's probably about 18, 19 or something because she's clearly underage when she goes to this bar because she can't order a drink or whatever. So, but like, she's a teenager basically, and there's two versions of her. You can get the one that I had, the punk version, where she has like the dyed hair, the heavy makeup and like the punk clothing. Or you can have a very sort of like more conservative, casual kind of Jodie. Almost like a Chloe Price or a Max Caulfield from Life is Strange. And it's completely dependent on whether you chose to have revenge at that party chapter. So I just wanted your take on that, like that Quantic Dream actively decided to kind of change Jodie's appearance based off of whether she was a pyromaniac a few years ago and whether you like that little detail.
I do. I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? So that one little action sort of dictates how she's going to end up being, and it's. I mean, you are right. It's sort of like the Chloe Price Jodie, really, isn't it? Like the dark hair, the dark makeup, like the skulls blanket. Even like looking, because we've just talked about the parents in First Night. It's like the sort of warm mum figure. And then you've obviously got like, the dad figure. Obviously, the dad I'd be referring to is almost like David in the Life is Strange universe. A more difficult relationship with. So like there are parallels there. But yeah, I think on a branching side of things, it's just another big tick to Quantic Dream, and it sort of shows Jodie's character development quite nicely, putting yourself in her shoes. She wants to go out and be a bit more normal, which is completely understandable given the fact that she doesn't really have parents anymore. Like I said before, she's treated a bit like a lab rat. She doesn't have like a proper home, and she's got this power that makes her, you could say, special, but also different from other people, So yeah, like you can almost like really empathise with Jodie in like the predicament that she's in this chapter.
I completely agree. And we get to like the first sort of half of the chapter really where it's about escaping because Dawkins and Cole will not let you go out. They think it's too dangerous. They want you to stay in your room. But you're adamant that you want to go out, and to do that you've kind of got to wreck the room a little bit. So Cole wakes up, comes out. And we love Cole a lot on this channel, but like you have to possess him to go out. And what's interesting about this whole section where you're possessing Cole and you're kind of walking out with Jodie is that like you have to kind of get through the guards and you have to kind of like get in the car and hide Jodie in the trunk. You could also like hide in the back, but I think you might be able to get caught then. There are a few ways you can get caught here. I thought I completely messed up the dialogue with the guard. Luckily, I didn't. Like, I don't know how because I gave such a lame lie. But the guard can actually touch Cole at the scene, and Cole kind of wakes up as like, what are we doing here? Oh my god, like you tried to sneak out, you possessed me, calls Dawkins, and then the chapter ends there with them kind of yelling at you back to your room. So, I mean, it does end kind of nice where Dawkins will hug and sort of say, look, I'm doing this to protect you, and there is kind of a mutual understanding. But yeah, I just wanted your take, mate, that the fact that you can actually fail that section escaping and the chapter can end there and there to the point you don't even get the scene.
Again, brilliant, because it shows that your actions matter, which is exactly what we want from these sorts of games. I always assumed that you would make it out to the bar. So, do you know what I mean? That's real news to me. I will say that, you know, you were sort of saying before about the hospital bit, you know, the CIA, the coming out of the coma was a bit convoluted. I was thinking, like, the guard is so shoddy, isn't he?
Oh,
because
yeah.
like you can tell from Cole's body language, like he's not engaging him, he's just completely looking the other way, like, you know, and the fact that Jodie's doing all of the talking, surely the guard must know, he must have some sort of intel that, you know, this girl, she's got special power, like she can do some things. So, do you know what I mean? The alarm bells should go off if certain, you know, weird things start to happen. But hey ho, it was just a way to get her outside, wasn't it? But yeah, that's really good, mate. That's really good that you can fail that section.
Very varied. And I agree. Like, I get the whole argument of, oh, Cole wanted to take me out to see the stars. But then there should have been a level of, Cole, is this true? And with no verbal confirmation, it's like, right, well, this girl's probably up to something here. So no, I completely agree on that one. But we do get to this Red House bar, and again, I cut the chapter fairly short because I didn't want to go through the dark ending, because it is dark, and I will tell you what kind of happens. But the first thing to notice when we do get into this bar, a very seedy bar, by the way, is that we get a lot of recycled assets. So a little thing for you to know is that obviously, you know, the person that you can kind of clearly tell, we have Todd from Detroit Become Human, who's playing this Earl character. But also something that I just learnt myself, mate, is that the barman, Sam, is a recycled model of Zlatko from Detroit Become Human as well. And on top of that, you'll have these two lads which are playing pool around the bar when you walk in there. I didn't realise this, but it's clearly the two lads from the party that you went to that locked you in that cupboard. You've got like Matt and I believe the guy's name's like Sam or something. But yeah, like it's clearly that British guy. So like it's just interesting to see those two party people have come back and they're at the pool room. So yeah, mate, just again, more recycled assets.
I was going to ask you about that actually. Given that we've said this about DPA before, how we feel like it's a little bit, be careful with my words here, but like you sort of think, oh come on, like let's just get some more faces in there. Do you have the same level of like opinion, or like sort of anger's a strong word, but you get what I mean, like towards Quantic Dream for recycling assets as you do like the DPA franchise?
Yeah, in a weird way, I almost can't be frustrated because I didn't realise it. Like Stan as well is like Perkins from Detroit Become Human. At the party, you've got that like Sam girl who's clearly Chloe, like the AI girl in the menu. They recycled a lot of assets, but I didn't realise it to the point that I can't be frustrated. DPA, it took some time, but it did grow on me because I almost sort of see it like American Horror Story, where they are anthologies, you have the actors come back, and there probably is like a reasoning for it, whether it's like the curator remembering and tying same faces to these characters, I'm unsure. But yeah, like, no, I wouldn't say it is something that particularly bothers me, to be honest, because I still think that they bring enough like fresh characters in, like Willem Dafoe playing Dawkins, or, you know, Elliot Page playing Jodie. So, you know, I think it is fresh enough that you can kind of get away with it. But lad, like when I played this, so you'll probably, you would have only seen the version where I order my lemonade, I drink it. And the reason I left is because it gets really dark if you choose to stay in this bar. The two chaps from the party that play will leave, but the two chaps sat at the bar will then kind of like come up to you and sort of harass you a little bit. You can kind of linger on and play some pool, arcades, pinballs. There's a jukebox you can interact with. But, you know, like, this guy is like, yeah, we're going to play pool together. And then he will start, like, subtly harassing you. Then he will start, like, kind of, like, sexually touching you. And then you can choose whether to discuss it with him. If you're repulsed by it, you can even slap him. But none of it will matter because this guy who was Todd in the other games, which, by the way, I want to say a side note, is that he always plays the worst, seediest characters who always abuse. Someone in my stream said apparently the actor is like the nicest guy in real life. So, you know what, one day I would love to have this Todd guy on the channel to interview him, because I want to see that, you know, because he has this habit of playing the worst characters. But yeah, so it gets really dark, and it gets to the point where there's all this sexual assault going on. They'll throw you onto the pool table. His mate will like assist in doing this, so you're getting absolutely overpowered by these two guys. But then that's when you switch to Aiden, and you can choose whether to just scare them by chucking stuff around the bar, or you can actually possess the barman Sam, and you can grab a shotgun and shoot the two people. And when that happens, a DPA security guard comes in, Cole and Nathan come in, and they'll save you, hug. And the thing is with this as well, is that I don't want to spoil too much, but if this all goes down, if you don't leave the bar when I did, Jodie will have trauma, and it will affect certain things from happening in the future. Like, there are certain prevented endings because she has like PTSD, and rightfully so, because it is a really dark, harrowing subject. So I just wanted your take on all of that, because obviously in the stream I cut it early. I left at the bar when I did because I had the knowledge, because I feel like if you play it on your blind playthrough the bar at that point, I certainly didn't. It's like I wanted to see how this played out. So I just wanted your take on that, like how dark the chapter is, but also the thing I mentioned of like, if you do progress and you do live with that trauma, how it will actually affect certain endings you can get in the game.
Well, I mean, as far as the future goes, we'll just have to see how that plays out. You know, obviously when we get to that point, you can like fill me in and what have you. But I suppose, yeah, I mean, especially with these that we've just covered in this particular episode. But yeah, some really heavy hitting subjects in here. You know, obviously like the sexual assault, homelessness, the self-harm, parents' abandonment. You know, there are some really big things hitting in here. Obviously, I've not seen the sort of the sexual assault scene play out and what have you, so you know it's going to be a fairly limited opinion. But from what I can see, like from what you know, how it's been done so far, is that you know that they've obviously handled these things with a lot of respect. And I can't remember if when you boot the game up, there's usually some sort of indicator or disclaimer, isn't there, like warning people of heavy themes. But yeah, I suppose my questions based off of what you just said, mate, were, you know, if you do possess as the barman and then you shoot them, does that mean that the barman then gets arrested? Like, is that ever explored? And also as well, like, because you didn't have that altercation, Dawkins obviously talks to you, doesn't he, afterwards, and he says, oh, I'm just trying to protect you. Can that little dressing down from Dawkins play out differently had, you know, played out the scene? You know, you had the experience with the guys at the bar and potentially seen the shooting and stuff like that. Is like the tone different?
I'm unsure. It's a good question, and I don't truthfully know, because I only would have had the one in the bar when I first played it, and that was like, you know, just shy of a decade ago, to be honest. So I'll have to see it again. As for what happens to the barman, I'm unsure as well. But if I had to kind of like gamble, I would say that like clearly Dawkins and this DPA thing, you know, they're being linked with the CIA or well, not with the CIA, but they have some high power. I reckon they'd probably be able to, like, you know, either silence the barman or kind of like, but also as well, if you possess the barman probably, like, you know, wouldn't know what he's done, because like when people get possessed, they tend to wake up and be like, how did I get here? So the barman would probably be like, oh, like not knowledgeable as to what's happened, and kind of just be like, why are there blood splatters and dead bodies all over my bar? But yeah, like, no, it is a good question, and it obviously does mean that there is like a fair amount of variety in this chapter. which again I just have to praise, because it's like a lot of other video games, like you know, and I will say Telltale, they would have made it very go through the motions, but Quantic Dream are like, now we're actively going to change Jodie's outfit at the start based off a choice you did a few chapters ago. We're actively going to have different ways that you can end the chapter prematurely if you fail certain dialogues or QTEs. So yeah, no, Quantic Dream, just again, they're just kind of like the masters at what they do in their craft. Yeah, we will wrap it up there, guys. So that was Homeless, First Night, and Like Other Girls. Let us know what you thought of these chapters. Please let us know if you also hate Philip. Let us know if Homeless is one of your favourite chapters. And, you know, tell us what you thought of the Like Other Girls chapter as well, and how that one played out for yourselves. Please join us next week, where we will be doing the next parts of our analysis, and we'll be looking at the other different chapters. And if you like content like this, like and subscribe, because we do a lot more. And I'd love to make more Quantic Dream videos, to be honest. So yeah, feel free to share some love on the channel. But otherwise, it's been a pleasure doing this analysis. We will see you all in the next one.
Catch you later, guys.